Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we've got a really fascinating stack of sources. We're going deep into selfless giving, divine mercy, and, well, some pretty profound wisdom.
That's right. It's this mix, isn't it? You get really practical stuff like who to serve, but then it zooms right out to the big theological why. Why God acts through mercy, why his wisdom is, well, unsearchable. Our goal is figuring out what true generosity looks like according to this material.
Okay, so practical instruction in cosmic context. Let's start with the immediate stuff. We have this incredible scene. Jesus is at a dinner, a Sabbath dinner, actually.
Yeah, with a leading Pharisee.
Yeah.
And instead of just, being a polite guest, he basically critiques the whole social system right there at the table.
Okay, let's unpack that. We're calling it the dinner party rule. It's from Luke's gospel, and honestly, it feels pretty challenging even today.
Oh, absolutely. It completely flips the script. I mean, back then, your social life, your influence, it was all built on this really intricate system of, well, keeping score, basically. I invite you, you invite me back, maybe with a nicer dinner.
Reciprocity, it's how networking works.
Exactly. And Jesus just goes straight for it. He tells the host, look, when you throw a party, a lunch, a dinner, whatever, don't invite your friends, don't invite your brothers, your sisters, your relatives, or, crucially, your rich neighbors.
And the reason he gives is just stark.
It really is. He says, don't invite them in case they invite you back, and then you've been repaid. The mere possibility of getting something back seems to, well, disqualify the act as purely generous. It makes it a transaction.
Okay, hold on. Doesn't that challenge everything? We build communities on helping each other, supporting family, neighbors. Isn't that system of favors kind of necessary?
Well, I don't think it's saying abandon your family or friends. But it forces you to draw a line, doesn't it? Between, say, normal social interaction and what counts as genuine, selfless giving in this context. The benchmark here is giving purely based on need, where there's zero chance of getting paid back socially or otherwise.
So if you're giving, and even subconsciously you're thinking, oh, this might help me later, or they'll owe me one.
Then according to this text, that's not quite it. That's more like bartering, maybe. True generosity here is defined specifically by serving those who cannot repay you. That phrase is key.
Right. So who should be on the guest list then, if not friends or rich neighbors?
Well, the list is very specific, and it guarantees basically zero social return for the host, he says. Invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind.
Wow. People who, definitely couldn't host you back. They couldn't boost your social standing.
Exactly. They have nothing to offer in return in that societal game. You can just imagine the quiet that must fallen over that Pharisee's dinner party. It's not just advice. It's almost a social rebellion he's calling for.
Choosing the needy over the network. Deliberately.
And that choice, that deliberation, makes the act pure, you see. It forces the question, am I doing this for them or for me? And the sources keep saying, this kind of giving, this reflects God's heart, which is all about unconditional giving.
Okay, so if the act is defined by not getting repaid by the recipient, what's the motivation? Why do it? Surely there's some reward, even if it's not from the dinner guest.
Oh, absolutely. The sources are quite clear on that. There are promises attached to this specific kind of non-reciprocal giving. There's a sort of immediate blessing and then a much bigger future guarantee.
Okay, let's take the immediate one first. Psalm 41, right?
Yeah, Psalm 41, verse 1. It says, "Blessed is he who considers the poor. The Lord will deliver him in the day of trouble." So there's this link between compassion in action, actively considering the poor, and, well, divine help when you need it.
A kind of spiritual safety net tied to practical kindness.
Right. But the ultimate payoff, the big one, goes way beyond earthly troubles. That's back in Luke, the promise Jesus makes directly to
because of their inability to repay you. That part always jumps out.
Exactly. Because of their inability to repay you. It's not despite their inability, it's because of it. That very fact that they can't pay you back is what activates the blessing.
Which is?
For you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous. So the repayment is shifted entirely. It's deferred, and it comes from a higher source.
So it's like spiritual accounting. You're taking the effort you might put into earthly networking, which has uncertain returns, and you're investing it somewhere with a guaranteed divine payback.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. The transaction is elevated. God becomes the guarantor. And the sources frame this beautifully. Your kindness becomes this private offering to God who, it says, sees every act done in secret. The motivation shifts entirely from earthly reputation to divine relationship.
Which changes the daily question, doesn't it? Instead of who can help me today, it becomes, as our sources put it, how can I show kindness today to someone who cannot repay me? Finding that non-reciprocal opportunity becomes the goal.
Yes. And that leads us beautifully into the bigger picture.
Right, the cosmic connection. If the ultimate reward comes from God because we gave without expecting repayment, what does that tell us about God himself? Does he operate on merit or?
Exactly. That's the pivot. From the dinner party to the divine nature explored in Romans 11. If we're meant to mirror God's generosity, we need to understand the model, right?
And Romans 11 starts with this massive claim about God's commitment, his promises.
It does. It lays down this foundational principle. The gifts and the call of God are irrevocable. Irrevocable. That's huge. It means God's fundamental promises, his grace, his calling, they aren't dependent on our performance moment to moment. They're fixed, permanent, unchangeable.
Wow. That sets quite a precedent for unconditional giving, doesn't it? If God's gifts aren't earned or revocable based on our behavior.
Precisely. It mirrors the dinner guests who couldn't earn their place by repaying the host. But Romans then explains how God achieves his universal mercy. And it's paradoxical.
How so?
Because human mercy usually follows repentance, right? Or maybe some sign of worthiness. But this text suggests God's mercy works almost through failure. It says God delivered all to disobedience, that he might have mercy upon all.
Wait, he delivered everyone to disobedience
Yeah.
so that he could show mercy to everyone. That sounds backwards.
It's completely counterintuitive to human logic.
Yeah.
But it's revolutionary. It suggests the system of divine love is so vast, so robust, it actually uses universal failure as its foundation. By showing that everyone falls short, that all are subject to disobedience, God establishes mercy as the only possible solution, the universal principle that covers everyone. Nobody gets excluded just because they failed, because failure was part of the setup to demonstrate the necessity of mercy.
Okay, I think I see the connection now. If God's call is irrevocable and his mercy is universal, applied precisely because of universal failure, not despite it, that's the ultimate model.
Yes, that's the divine standard. So our human generosity, if it's reflecting that nature, has to be deeply unconditional too. It shouldn't depend on the recipient's worthiness or status, or crucially, their ability to pay us back.
The standard is set at the very top. By choosing the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, those who can't reciprocate, we're actually acting out a divine principle in a very tangible human way.
Exactly. We're demonstrating non-reciprocal love.
And building on that idea of God's profound unconditional mercy, Romans 11 then just bursts into this expression of, sheer awe.
It really does. It's like the writer steps back, realizes the sheer scale and depth of what they've just described, and is just overwhelmed. Oh, the depth of the riches and wisdom and knowledge of God. And then those key words. How inscrutable are his judgments and how unsearchable are his ways.
Inscrutable, unsearchable. Basically saying you can't fully figure this out. It's beyond us.
Right. And that sense of scale, of awe, is driven home with these rhetorical questions. They really highlight our dependence, our smallness compared to the divine. Like, for who has known the mind of the Lord, or who has been his counselor? The answer is obvious. Nobody.
We can't advise God.
No. And then comes the question that ties it all together, right back to that dinner party rule we started with. It's the ultimate non-reciprocity test.
Or who has given him anything that he may be repaid.
Boom, there it is. Just like we're told not to give expecting repayment from guests, the text highlights God's ultimate sovereignty by stating that no one could ever put God in their debt. He owes nothing to anyone. He is the absolute source.
So that principle, giving without expecting return, operates all the way from God down to us inviting the poor for a meal. It's the same logic.
It is. We're participating in a system where the giver acts freely, not depending on the recipient. And maybe as a comfort, the sources also remind us that God does hear those recipients. Psalm 69 assures us, "The Lord hears the poor, and his own who are in bonds he spurns not." They might not be able to repay us, but they are heard at the highest level.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. This deep dive suggests true generosity means serving those who absolutely cannot pay you back, the poor, the afflicted, taking the transaction right out of the equation.
Right, and doing that mirrors God's own mercy, which is described as this unsearchable, irrevocable, unconditional thing. It turns our simple act into, spiritual accounting with a divine guarantor.
And then there's that final link you mentioned, connecting this kind of action to truth and discipleship.
Yes, from John's Gospel. The idea that genuine wisdom comes from receiving divine truth. It says, "If you remain in my word, you will truly be my disciples and you will know the truth." It connects abiding in the word, discipleship and knowing truth.
Which leaves us with maybe a final thought to chew on. How does something as simple, as practical, as, well, frankly, as socially awkward as inviting the lame and the blind to dinner, an act completely stripped of worldly expectation, how does that specific action actually lead us towards profound truth and becoming true disciples?
That connection between selfless practice and deep knowing, that seems to be the journey these sources invite us to explore.
A lot to think about there. Thank you for joining us on the deep dive.